You're tuned into Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Tune in right now.
What's up, world? I'm your host, Neema, Skye. Welcome back to another edition of Gone Viral. But listen, y'all, I have a person with me, a beautiful, amazing host, Miss Porchia Carter. What's up,
hey,
y'all? Yes. Okay,
what's
guys, we're
up,
back.
everybody?
How you doing, Miss Porchia?
I am pushing through. I think that's my answer to every time I hear that question in this season. I'm pushing through because that's all we can do. How about you?
I'm doing well. You know, we got our quarantine. That's why it's called Going Viral in Quarantine. We had to kind of switch it up a little bit. I mean, life is good, but I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, first of all, we're coming back and there's been so much stuff happening in the world. That's why now we're doing it more in quarantine and we're focusing on the viral impacts. Now, let's talk about some things that have been going on. Tonight, I want to start off with our conversation with Lecrae and the pastor from in Atlanta. So recently, Lecrae posted a video on Instagram and he talked about a conversation that he had with Louie Giglio from the church in Atlanta. And basically what happened is it was white privilege versus white blessing. Now, we know that is a very, iffy topic. So, but I just want to know, like, when you hear the word white privilege versus white blessing, like, how does that make you think? Like, you're in church, you're hearing that, like, how do you think that in terms of
Hold on,
culture,
was it people there? Was it actually church going on? Because I thought it was just like a conversation.
Well, definitely, it was definitely a conversation. But basically, the pastor was trying to help people understand more. Like, instead of saying white privilege, we're going to say white blessing. And Lecrae didn't really say anything. But later, what ended up happening was, he had to the pastor actually had to apologize, and Lecrae came on, and he had to pull him to the side. Now, I just want to know, with everything going on, we talked about white privilege and we know exactly what it is, but within the church, white privilege versus white blessing, like, what do you think that means, Porchia?
So this was one of those topics, it was like a yikes, like when that happened, I wasn't saying yikes because of the fact that the pastor said that, because obviously that was ignorant. If we're gonna just be frank, it was very ignorant of him to say something like that. But when it went viral that Lecrae only gave a head nod in that moment instead of just cutting him off right then and there and trying to, change his viewpoints from calling it a blessing to what it actually is, that's when I was just like, yikes. I was kind of like I wasn't against Lecrae because we love Lecrae. We love him.
Absolutely.
I was just in a place where I'm just like, let's unpack that. What he just said, let's unpack that. Because if it was me, well, I'm not gonna say if it was me because I don't know what I would have done. But in this moment right here, if I was to unpack that, the word blessing means basically something that came from God,
right?
Something good that is supposed to help you and prosper you in your life. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. When I think of blessing, I don't think of slavery. I think of, God blessing me with something material-wise, or, blessing my health, or blessing my mind.
Well, see, the thing about it is that what he said, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but he said basically, a lot of time when a person hears the word white privilege, they, immediately get offended. So he was saying that basically slavery is what has allowed white people to be blessed. And so he doesn't call it white privilege, he calls it a white blessing. But needless to say, a lot of people had a lot of things to say about it. And he did give a public apology on Twitter. He was very, heartbroken because in his mind, he didn't really see what was wrong with saying it. But however, like of course we saw Lecrae talking about it, and he pulled him to the side and say, "Hey, I know you didn't mean anything about it, but." From the perspective of the church, like, we have to be very careful about how we say things because it could really be perceived on the outside as something that's very offensive. So I have to say that I think that, Lecrae did a great job. And I, of course, the pastor for, coming on Twitter, coming on social media and giving his apology. I mean, but do you think...
I watched his apology, okay? So I watched the pastor's apology. And he basically explained in the apology the same thing that he said on stage. He literally said that Slavery is the blessing that built up the world that the white people live in.
Absolutely.
Now, if we take a look at slavery, let's just go there. Slavery, they stole people, they kidnapped them, they raped our women, they beat them, they burned them with the Willie Lynch methods that they had. They tore Black men in two, like literally by their leg, after pouring hot tar and feathers on them. Like they took their men away from the families. Where on that do you see blessing? They rape Black women consistently. Where in that do you see blessing? And even after slavery, if you want to just take it from slavery and move it on to white privilege as in today's world, even after slavery, in segregation, they lynched people, they bombed houses, they was going through tearing up people's houses while kids were there.
Right.
Like they did so many harmful things to our people. They assassinated our leaders. Like they was throwing weights at people, shooting them dead in the streets, pulling out water hoses on them, getting dogs on them, like all types of stuff. Where in that do you see blessing?
Yeah, and again, I think it really showed the reality of that. You know, we have a lot of people in the church, you know, a lot of our white, you know, brothers and sisters who still just don't understand the impact of white privilege, white blessing, whatever you want to call it, but slavery is a very sensitive topic, and regardless of how you speak on those matters, you have to be very, very sensitive on how you say it, because it could definitely be taken the wrong way. And of course, we know the history of slavery is not beautiful. We know all of the things that have happened, you know, us being, you know, torn apart, just families, so many different effects, even till today, like as a culture that, you know, we're still dealing with that. But again, you know, that's a very touchy topic whenever it comes to talking about racism.
That's why I like in the Lecrae's response. Like Lecrae's response when he saw that it had gone viral and people were taking it to him not saying anything, like speaking in that moment, he let it be known. He was just basically like, there are some times where our Black brothers and sisters have to say, I don't know. And they have to be able to learn from our Black brothers and sisters, because just because you live in a world that aligns with your culture do not mean that your culture is right. It does not mean what you do is right. And especially when it comes to like the church. When it comes to the church, because like, you know, I believe that, you know, I am a part of the church, a member of the body of Christ. Absolutely. There is something to say about the way people think that their logic is right. If your quote unquote culture is to go by and just shoot every, you know, person who don't look like you off on the street, just shoot them on the street dead. What does that say about you? And where did you get that from? And how does that align with the word of God? Because literally the word of God says, woe to him who builds a city on bloodshed and establishes injustice. Establishes a town in injustice. Like, y'all don't think your time is coming? There's a time coming for justice to be served. Like it says, woe to them. So whenever, you know, God is saying woe to somebody, that means you think you're doing right now, but woe to you, because in the end, something else is about to turn around. Like your mind is about to be blown with the way that you are going to be, you know, dwelling in the consequences of your actions. Like nothing of that was right. And I think to say that because, you know, because I'm white and my white people don't want to hear white privilege, they'd rather hear white blessing. There's no excuse. Really like break down terminology. Really go and do your due diligence and research definitions and what words really mean. Because if you knew what the word blessing meant, you would not have used that word.
Absolutely. But I mean, again, I definitely commend him, you know, bringing Lecrae in. And he also had the CEO of Chick-fil-A that came in and had the discussion. And the CEO from Chick-fil-A seemed very remorseful. Like I could tell that he was very touched and hurt. But again, that was very close to around the time of the Rayshard Brooks incident that happened, which is basically our next conversation that we're getting into. Oh my God. Of course, we know what happened with Rayshard Brooks. The first thing is, let's talk about the tape, right? So let me just give you a little insight. I was actually in Atlanta when it happened, and they viewed it on the on the news. I think it was like ABC. From the perspective of watching it on the news, all they showed was him getting into the fight with the officer. So immediately, it makes it seem like this African-American man is getting, he's being violent, he's attacking police officers. So surely if they shot him, then that's okay. So then a couple of minutes or maybe like a day later, we see the video on Revolt. And we see this man basically letting officers know, hey, I am drunk. I am very responsible, the fact that I know that I need to wait. I was trying to get some food. I was trying to take control of the situation before I endangered my life or anybody else. And still we see that unjust moment where, regardless of what he was saying, their intention was definitely to take him down, and they ended up shooting him. So, I mean, Porchia, give me a little bit insight of, what you think about the entire incident that happened.
I have so much to say about this, but since you brought up the video first, let's talk about the video, the full video. So first and foremost, these men talked to Rayshard for 46 minutes before the fatal shooting. Like, you had almost an hour of talking to this man, seeing that, he is in a drunken state, seeing that he is willing to
But he's not even driving.
He's not even driving. Dude was asleep.
Right.
He sleep. Like, and granted, pull over off to the side and, park and sleep, all of that. Cool. But my thing is, if he wants to sleep in his car, y'all could have let that happen. Y'all could have let that happen. So they talk to him. Y'all see that he's drunken. Y'all see that, he is remorseful about his current state. He's willing to walk home. He's willing to, do whatever he got to do to avoid going to jail. And then at the end of the 46-minute conversation, you're like, okay, well, let me give you a breathalyzer. Like, the dude didn't just tell you that he been drinking.
Yeah.
So I feel like what happened was kind of premeditated. They were looking for trouble. They were looking for a reason to do what it is that they did. And granted, he fought and he tried to get away and all of that. I think when people first only saw the fight part and wanted to say that, he shouldn't, I feel like
he was at fault because he was being violent. It's just
And like he is never at fault. I believe that we as a people are conditioned to believe that anything we do outside of complying with the police results in death. And that is not true. It should never result in death unless you are armed with a weapon pointed directly at them.
Right.
If you're not armed with a weapon pointed directly at them to threaten their life, then you should not die either.
And I think, we are really starting to see, again, with George Floyd and so many other cases of so many, African Americans who have died at the hands of police officers, there is just a disconnect, where it's almost like inhumane. It's like you're willing to literally, like, you see someone who is very vulnerable and they are willing to surrender in this moment to say, hey, okay, whatever I need to do to rectify the situation, but still your demeanor is, I want to take them down. Like, I feel like there's some type of, false, sense of authority where it's like, okay, just because you're supposed to protect, it doesn't mean that you are someone who it has the authority to say whether or not somebody should live or die, or, okay, well, I'm just going to shoot this person because I feel like they're wrong. It's like, there's something wrong with the system about right and wrong, and like how you're actually supposed to, to deal with that, which I, do kind of want to bring up a little bit about Keisha Lance Bottom, because she did give a speech a little bit after that, and she was talking about how she wanted to go through with helping, the police force and how they actually train their men to deal with people, and again, like I said before, I think that it is just a system that we are starting to see that they don't understand how to be able to deal with certain situations. And it's literally racism. There's no other way that you can say that this is not a problem other than I am literally racially profiling. Like I am literally targeting this person. And even though this person is innocent, like blind innocent, they're not trying to do anything wrong, I still have hate within my heart enough to say that I literally wanted to attack them. I think that, again, like I said before, we really need to figure out what's going on in this system. Like how are they training these men? Like what's really happening for them to feel like you have to take a life of someone else that is just not your own? Like it's not right. and again, like I said before, I was there when it happened. And then we get to the point of what I do want to talk about is the Wendy situation where they basically put it on fire. Now, the interesting thing about this is, of course, you know, we saw the Wendy's was set on fire, and everybody was saying at the site that it was literally the protesters. However, there's some information that I did dig, and it wasn't quite the protesters who actually started the fire. We see that it was a young lady by the name of Natalie White, which they claim to say that this was Rayshard Brooks' girlfriend. But again, like I said, the media pinned it, you know, as being the protesters. Talk to me, Porchia. Tell me what you think.
I want to touch on a few things that you said when you spoke about Keisha's, basically when she mentioned that about the training. She literally said that we have to train our officers to de-escalate situations with reasonable objectivity. Now, I want to talk about that because there was nothing reasonable about their mindset in the process of it happening. We know that it was actually racial injustice.
Right.
Because even after they shot him dead, they stepped on him, stood on him, kicked him, all types of stuff in this video, right? And so then next with the whole Wendy's thing, hey, look, y'all taking people out, you know, stuff is starting to be burned to the ground. The issue that I have with them blaming this Wendy's thing on this Natalie White girlfriend is the fact that Rayshard has a wife. Like,
very interesting. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, what's going on.
Very, very interesting, because when we watched the full body cam video of him talking and explaining, he did say my girlfriend a few times. He did, you know, mention it or whatever. But then, you know, Tamika Miller comes out as, you know, his wife. And then there's like a whole realm of confusion, because Tamika Miller is the one at the press conferences, at, you know, the hearings, everything, you know, explaining how she felt. You know, even when it was one press conference on CBS that happened, and one of the reporters was asking her, how did she feel when she found out that they kicked him and stuff like that while he was already, you know, down, and she burst out into tears. And it's just like, if he, you know, has a wife, and this is the person that they're putting on the forefront of all the media concerning him, because, you know, he has his wife and children, where did this girlfriend come from? Like, did it come from him actually having a girlfriend outside of his wife? Or, because, like,
and see, that's the thing.
It's confusion.
It's confusion. And again, we go back to the point of how the media pretty much controls our perception of how we're going to perceive information. Like, we don't know who this came from. We don't know what source, but all we know is that they're basically saying that she could have been attached to being the person who was in a relationship with him. However, I also did find that there was a statement that they claimed that Rayshard Brooks made, saying that his girlfriend, and he did say Natalie White, it was in print, saying that, you know, he was going to get her something to eat and told her that, you know, he would be back. So that
we actually saw him say that on the body cam footage.
Yep. The statement was made. So
it's just a lot going on, like, in that area. So it's like, now granted, that does not negate the fact that what the cops did were wrong. That does not negate the fact that, you know, they are now being prosecuted as they should.
Right.
But it does, like, it's like kind of confusing in the media realm, because, you know, we have this woman who is left without a husband and, you know, her children. And shout out to Slutty Vegan and Big Dave's Cheesecake, because they actually bought Tamika a brand new car. Yeah. And they gave full ride scholarships to all 4 of the children to Clark Atlanta. And they made sure the entire family has life insurance. So shout out to them. I believe the owner of Slutty Vegan is Aisha Cole. Yes. And
amazing food, by the way.
Yes. And Derek Hayes is the owner of Big Dave's Cheesecake. So shout out to them. That was a very beautiful gesture. I am very honored that they did that because she is in the time of need. However, with it being out there, you know, that he also has a girlfriend who is burning up Wendy's, it's like, I mean, it's like, world of confusion at this point.
I know. And again, I don't feel like we would ever really know that story just because it's very, very sensitive. You know, he died, he's married, this is a girlfriend. So that's not really the focus. But, you know, of course, again, like I said before, that is very interesting because the whole time that they were covering on the news, they wanted to seem like, okay, it's the protesters. And, you know, now they're out looting and, you know, they just burned down the Wendy's when actuality, that just wasn't the person who actually burned down the Wendy's. So that's, again, another thing that we have been seeing in the media where, you know, they're basically trying to seem like, you know, protesters are pretty much the start of all of this looting and, you know, doing damages, you know, to buildings and everything else. But again, the media always tends to control our perception on who we're going to perceive, who should be at fault, the Black man or the white man. But another conversation that I really want to get into is the B Simone. Of course, we know that she did come out with her book, The Manifest Queen. And she kind of got in a little bit of a war because there was another influencer who realized that she had a very similar, I mean, verbatim. If you look at the page, it's literally the same exact page as this content creator. I mean, she has about 28K followers. Of course, you know, B Simone she has millions of people following her. And I actually remember when she actually issued the book, with the book, and I mean, she sold like 1,000 copies within like an hour. So I know that she's made, you know, a big profit on this. Now, the young lady had a lot to say about it. And then, of course, B Simone came forth and she talked about, you know, how, of course, she did not know that somebody on her team that she gave the right to edit her book, she did not know that they took a page from the book. And of course, you know, she said, you know, she takes full responsibility. She was very, very, you know, accountable about it. However, it's still, how do we feel about it? It's like, it's your book, you know, you're the executive who makes all the decisions, yet there's something that goes out, plagiarism from a completely different content creator, and it's blasted out on social media. I mean, what are your feelings about this, Porchia?
I would honestly say that there's a lot of double checking that needs to be done in a situation like this. This was another yikes for me. Like when I first saw the story, you know, B Simone been in the news a lot lately. She's been in the news a lot lately, and I get it. There's a lot going on with her. But when I saw this in particular, my whole thing was when it comes to trying to help people, because this is like a self-help book. Right. You know, manifest, whatever it is, blase, right? When it comes to trying to help people, you have to have integrity with the things that you do. You cannot build something off the backs of people who are really going to support you and present them fluff. It's like, I'm, you know, just giving you what I got because I'm trying to make a quick dollar. Now, granted, that doesn't cause for a canceling, but it does cause for her to be held accountable in that area.
Right. I mean, because, you know, the culture was really trying to, they were like, listen, man, we're about to cancel B Simone. Like, you know, they were going to cancel her. But again, like going back to what you said, I think the question that I had was, you know, and I think B Simone is an amazing person. I mean, I've watched all of her YouTube videos. I pretty much follow her story. So she is a very vulnerable and open person. She's very transparent. However, from my perspective, it's like if I'm writing a book about something and I'm giving it to the people, it's going to be from my perspective. If I'm talking about how I manifest things in my life, it's going to be my words. And I guess from my misunderstanding is like, if these are your words and if this is something that you manifested and you're telling your story, then it's like, why do you not know, like, why when you put your own material and information in there to say, hey, okay, I want specifically, you know, this is from my notebook, this, you know, this is what I actually wrote down. I guess in my mind, that's where the disconnect is for me.
She actually did. She took like real pages from her journal. She said like it's 4 pages of stuff from her journal, and just her thoughts. It was the workbook portion of the book that was, stuff that was taken off Pinterest from different bloggers. And when these bloggers came out, like, wow, this is a direct, screenshot from, my Pinterest blog that I put up and things of that nature. I think that she just didn't double check it. And even if she did double check it before it went out, like she just wasn't on her P's and Q's with that. Because when you go to college or when you go to any school for that nature, they teach you about plagiarism. They teach you about
it could literally be like one sentence and it's like, it's plagiarism. Like you always have to make sure you give credit to whom credit is due. Because if you don't, like even with the picture, we know like when you're writing articles or just anything, you always have to give people their credit. And the moment that you don't give people, their credit, immediately, like people are going to attack you. They're going to think that, okay, like you're not real, you're not integrous. And even in speaking of that, was very interesting. Meek Mills actually made a comment in regards to it on Twitter. And he was saying how he felt like people shouldn't try to cancel B Simone from the culture. Like, even though she did what she did, she's still not at fault for it. Like, it was her team. And basically talking about how a lot of times as Black people, whenever we're trying to elevate and be successful, we always try to find ways to pull each other down. And instead of pulling her down, we need to look at the fact that, there's other cultures and races who have stolen from Black, Black, when it comes to our songs and our music and other things. But it's like, we don't point them out for stealing the things that they do, but yet another Black person who's supposed to be our sister, our brother, B Simone, we're like holding her down, and we're not really trying to support her and actually uplift her through this moment. What do you think about that?
I think it's just a learning moment. It's just a learning moment. It's not, well, speaking for me, because I don't know what everybody else's agenda is. I don't know what everybody else saying. I don't really care what everybody else saying. For me, being on the outside looking into the situation is just a teaching moment for her to be held accountable, because I watched her journey even toward the making of this thing.
Absolutely.
She went on get $1 million in her savings account in 50 days.
By the age of 30.
By the age of 30. By the age of 30. And
she did it.
Journey, she did so many things to come up with this money. And so I believe that it was just in a rushed process that this happened. And so there were a lot of T's that weren't crossed and a lot of I's not being dotted. And I believe that when you are trying to help people, as I said before, you have to have integrity, because if you go down a crooked path in your production, it's going to be found out. Nothing you do crookedly, like, or that, I don't even know if that's a word. Nothing you do.
It's a word now.
Nothing you do by finessing, because that's a word for sure. Nothing you do by finessing is going to have a positive outcome. And even if it does have a positive outcome, it's only for that split second. You see, it only lasts a second in order for it to be found out. Now that it's found out for me, I would say that, my thing to be Simone is, receive, the correction, the teaching moments, the accountability, hold yourself accountable, and do everything you need to do. She said in her statement that, I'm the head of this team. I'm the captain. I'm the coach. My team messed up, and I'm gonna fix it. Now, granted, she should have went behind her team and checked before it went out. However, since she's in the process of fixing it, all I can do is commend her for that, commend her for admitting that a wrong was made, and she acknowledges that, and it's not something that she's trying to cover up, but she's willing to progress forward now, moving forward in integrity, rather than the way that it was done before, because you can only put.
And that definitely shows leadership. Right. It is. And that also speaks to volumes of the fact, sometimes like when people become very successful, it's like, you have those moments where, you do hire someone to manage, your business. However, you still have to make sure that you are actually looking into everything that they're doing, because it could be moments like this when, you have an editor, you basically gave them everything that you wanted them to say and do for your book. However, communication got lost. Maybe, it was a time constraint, or there was something within the communication, but it just showed you no matter where you are, you always have to be careful, and you always have to make sure that, you watch your team, because again, it's like, no matter what anybody else does on your team, you are always held responsible and accountable. And again, like I said, I 100% also do commend B Simone for actually stepping up and saying, hey, I'm sorry, and actually taking responsibility for it. Because again, like I said before, at the end of the day, regardless of who on your team does it, they don't know your team. You are the most visible person. So you have to be very careful about that.
Yeah, and we love her. We
do.
Love her.
I love her
we
too.
Respect
She's so
her
awesome.
as a comedian, an influencer, as somebody who has put themselves out there to show us that dreams come true every day. And so I believe that the accountability, just pushed in her direction means, stay a person of integrity, stay in that light, of actually inspiring us rather than finessing us.
Right. And again, like Meek Mill said, I agree with him. Don't cancel her for culture. She's a part of the culture. We all make mistakes, so it is what it is. But we have gotten around to our special segment, which is Viral Impact, where we like to highlight someone in particular who has used their platform to be so impactful. Of course, we know about Breonna Taylor, and we've been trying to get justice. Everybody's been trying to get justice on the police officers to make sure that they are punished for that. And again, everybody wrote all their letters, but I do want to highlight Miss Beyonce because she did write a letter, and I felt like there was a lot of different people writing a lot of different letters, but I felt like in that moment, for her to use her platform, and we've been seeing Beyonce a lot, speaking up, posting things on her website, and really being a part of the culture in the sense of her being able to speak out about things that she feels just not right about what's happening with our culture and our community. And I really want to say that I commend Beyonce for using her platform, because immediately after that, they actually ruled out, I believe what happened is it was a law that they put in place to make sure that from now going forward that things like what happened to Breonna Taylor would never happen again. So,
well, she wrote the letter after they passed Breonna's law. She was like,
really?
Yeah, we see, that's what it says, like in the first few lines of the letter. She was basically like, all right, y'all, we see that Breonna's law passed, but that ain't enough. These officers need to be charged. And then she gave different points of action steps that need to be taken, after all of this has happened, because they need to be prosecuted. And I believe that even though, we're commending Beyonce for this viral impact segment, Beyonce for the letter, but Beyonce has been, using her platform against racial injustice for years. Like, this is not nothing new. I think people have come to like this misconception that everybody has to be so vocal as soon as something, just pop off. Right. And then it like put a lot of pressure on people to do things that, that may not even be in their heart. Maybe they, feel like this is what I have to do because the social world is saying I have to do that. And but I believe, go ahead.
And because, whenever you do have a platform, people just expect you to automatically say something. But again, when you have a platform to that magnitude, you have to be careful about what you say and how you say it and how people are perceiving what you're saying. Because again, like I said before, everybody's watching you. So people, again, with celebrities, people always move on what they say. Like they are the most visible person. And again, like you said before with Beyonce, she has done that before in the past, but this particular time, she spoke up against, with George Floyd, and she did it with Breonna Taylor. And so again, we want to commend her and, say that she's doing a great job. And, with all the things that we talked about today, we talked about, the white blessing versus white privilege, the Rayshard Brooks case, and also talking about B Simone. These are things that are happening in our culture. They're going viral, but I think the biggest thing that with it all is that support and love is something that, we have to have in these moments, because I don't think that we're just dealing with this, as a community, but I think that we're also dealing with this as a nation. And in order for things to change, like we have to be aware of it. And again, protesting, like everybody protested for weeks, starting with George Floyd and just, continually going on. But I do want to say that I feel like we all have our own way of protesting, whether it's through a song or whether it's through, writing a poem or like the platform that, we have. I think that these conversations are very important, and that's what we want to do. We want to, center these conversations around allowing people to be able to express how they feel about the things that are happening, not just because it's viral. Viral is cool, but we don't want to overlook what's happening in our community, and we want to have these conversations so that we can be able to bridge the gap on the issues that we're having.
That's
Porchia,
amazing.
how you feel?
I just, since we're summing it all up, I believe that our fight for social injustice, racial injustice, all types of things that are going on now, I believe is very impactful for us to use our voices in this time, but using them in wisdom, in research, and sound judgment. Like, we can't just be, fighting off of our feelings and our emotions, which is why Lecrae didn't, when he said, well, when the pastor said what he said, Lecrae didn't immediately, just ram at him with that conversation, because we've been going through this all our lives. For us as Black people, we've been going through it all our lives. We've seen it all our lives. We've experienced firsthand what racism is, for majority of our existence. And I believe that when we are speaking from a place of passion, wisdom, and knowledge, rather than anger and frustration and hate, then our methods are more productive. And I believe that, using this show, using whatever platform we can use to, to amplify our voices is a way for us to be productive in that way. And I am grateful to be a part.
Yes. Well, that was our first Gone Viral in Quarantine show. Again, if you guys have any feelings or thoughts about the things that we talked about, you want to be able to express your voice, please feel free to do so in the chat or hit us up on Instagram. Let us know how you feel, and we will definitely be able to bring that back into the conversation again. This is Gone Viral in Quarantine. I am Neema Skye, and this is my host, Ms. Porchia. Sorry, I can't even say your name right.
Porchia Carter.
Yes, Porchia Carter. And we will be live every Monday giving you guys the information of Gone Viral in our community, contributing to culture, viral impact. It's all here. See you guys next week.
On behalf of our BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Check out our Black Hollywood Live YouTube page for even more great programming and amazing content, and be sure to subscribe and like our channel when you do. I'm your BHL host, Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom or at Black Hollywood Live. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.